If the ownership of this house isn't transferred to me, I'm contemplating divorce. My husband's words hit me like a bolt from the blue. I was stunned. This house wasn't just a structure. It was the heart of our family. A place filled with cherished memories. The thought of losing it was unbearable. But despite my emotional attachment, John was using it against me, manipulating my feelings. Feeling overwhelmed, I turned to my father for support. My name is Emily. I'm 30 years old and a full-time housewife, dedicating my days to managing our home. I married John 2 years ago, and since leaving my job after our wedding, he has been our sole provider. Our life was peaceful, until everything changed after my father-in-law passed away. That loss led to my mother-in-law moving in with us, a decision I wasn't even consulted on. John had casually informed me the night before she arrived, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I forgot to mention, my mother is moving in tomorrow, he had said, completely unfazed. I was taken aback. What? Moving in? Since when was this decided? Instead of a discussion, all I got was a request to prepare for her arrival, and the very next day, Mary, my mother-in-law, walked into our home with multiple suitcases in tow. It's been a while. I'm glad you look well. Mary, please come in. I greeted her politely. She barely acknowledged me, her expression disapproving. Why didn't you come to pick me up? It's common sense to meet your mother-in-law at the station, especially when she has heavy luggage. I wasn't sure what time you'd arrive, I started, but before I could finish, she cut me off. In that case, shouldn't you have called? Honestly, you're so thoughtless. I swallowed my frustration and apologized. This is why some daughters-in-law are useless and inconsiderate, she muttered as she sank into the sofa, acting as if she owned the place. From that day on, my life became a nightmare. As soon as John left for work, Mary's criticism would start. Emily, why are you just sitting there? Do the dishes. The laundry should have been done this morning. That's just common sense. I'll take care of it after I finish the dishes. You have your priorities all wrong. In my house, laundry comes first after breakfast. No matter how hard I tried, nothing I did was good enough. Even when I followed her preferences, she would still find something to complain about. The long hours alone with her were exhausting. Then, one day, I had an idea, a way to escape this situation. I had inherited a house from my father. After retiring early, my parents had moved to the countryside and passed their home on to me. It wasn't too far from our apartment, and we had always planned to move there eventually. But now, I wanted to move as soon as possible, to finally live apart from Mary. That evening, I brought it up with John. John, can we talk? Sure, what's on your mind? You remember the house my father gave us? What do you think about moving there soon? He looked at me curiously. We did talk about moving there someday. Why now? I took a deep breath. Honestly, I'm struggling with your mother. She never says anything directly, but I feel like I can't live with her anymore. I think it's best if we move, and she can stay here. To my surprise, John agreed. I had expected resistance, but he simply nodded. All right, if that's what you want. A week later, we packed our belongings. When we informed Mary about the move, I braced for an argument. Instead, she smiled. Goodbye, John and Emily. I'm sorry for the sudden decision to move. Don't worry about it, I replied, still shocked by her lack of protest. It's wonderful that your father gave you that house. He's very kind. Thank you. Please visit us sometime. Of course, and I hope you both visit me regularly too. We will. And just like that, we were free. I headed to our new home with John, a sense of relief washing over me. I no longer had to endure Mary's constant snide remarks. I could finally live at my own pace, without the stress of her judgment. Despite my initial fears about Mary's reaction, talking things through with John had brought me peace. But my relief was short-lived. As time passed, I noticed something troubling. John started coming home later and later. Some nights, he didn't come home at all. When I confronted him, he explained that he was worried about his mother. But his late returns were becoming more frequent. Without informing me, he would go to her house for dinner and sometimes stay the night, leaving me wondering where he was and what had changed. This can't go on, I thought to myself. One day, I decided to confront him. John, You've been coming home really late lately, and sometimes you don't come home at all, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Is that so? He replied, nonchalant. I'm just worried about my mother. That's not the issue. You could at least let me know if you're going to be late, so I don't have to worry or prepare dinner. Well, since you're a housewife and always home, you can eat the leftovers for lunch the next day, right? So, you think because I'm a housewife, I should just accept everything quietly? Is that what you're saying? Isn't that the truth? Housewives just relax at home. I was stunned. What are you saying? He didn't seem to notice my shock. Instead, he continued. Anyway, I'm worried about leaving my mother alone. Ellie's coming back soon, and I need to talk to her about a few things. Wait, Ellie's coming back? What does she need to discuss with you? We're moving Ellie in with us. Live here? Yes. She's been saying she wants a big house like the one she lived in abroad. So, I thought it would be nice to let her stay in this house. What? I don't understand. I was stunned. His sister Ellie was going to move in here? After all the effort to get away from Mary's constant complaints, now his sister was coming to live with us? And this was the house I'd inherited from my father. It didn't feel right at all. It's the only big house that would suit Ellie, John explained. The apartment we used to live in is now where my mother stays, and it's too small for 4 people. But I never intended to live with Ellie. I don't plan to live with her either, he said quickly. I plan to give the house to Ellie. What? Why? Because we're planning to move back in with my mother. Ellie will be free to use this house as she likes. I was in shock. My husband, without consulting me, had made the decision to give away the house I inherited from my father. The thought of it made me dizzy. That's absurd. I can't just give away my father's house to Ellie, I protested. Well, such a nice house is wasted on you, isn't it? I've already told Ellie she can have it. It's too late to back out now. I wasn't consulted in any of this. You can't just decide everything on your own. You're always complaining. Enough. Calm down and think this through. I'm going back to my mother's for a while. And with that, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Left alone, tears streamed down my face. I couldn't believe what was happening. He was willing to give away my father's house, all without even asking for my opinion. It felt like a betrayal. Every day after that, John sent me messages asking if I'd calmed down, urging me to come back home. Each time, I firmly told him I couldn't agree to his plan. Then, one day, he called with another shocking statement. Emily, when are you coming back to live with me? Stop nagging. I've told you 1,000 times, I don't want to live with Mary. Move to that apartment, or give this house to Ellie. I already told Ellie. Stop being selfish. She might be coming back this week, and we don't have time. Why should I give up my house for your family? This is my father's house, and you have no right to decide for me. Who do you think you're talking to? Even my mother is furious about this. I don't care about your mother's anger. You're ignoring my feelings, I snapped. John let out a frustrated sigh on the other end of the line, and then he said the words that would change everything. If you can't listen to me, then maybe we should divorce, hand over the house to Ellie and leave by tomorrow. My heart sank. The love I had once felt for him quickly faded. Threatening me with divorce was beyond despicable. How could he use that as leverage over me, without even considering how I felt? I couldn't let him or his family control me any longer. John's voice came through, cold and commanding. Listen, if you don't leave by tomorrow, I'll really divorce you. That's the end of it. Wait, are you serious? Of course I am. You don't have a choice. What will you do if a housewife gets divorced? You won't survive. Enough. I get it. Good. Hurry up and move. My mother's waiting to discipline you. With that, he hung up, thinking I would cave, but something inside me snapped. I couldn't let him treat me like this. I knew what I had to do. The next day, I was ready. When the movers arrived, I calmly replied to John's messages, fully prepared to take control of my own future. I couldn't help but ask, when is Ellie coming back? She'll be back tomorrow. Why are you so obsessed with Ellie? John snapped. Between you and me, it seems like she made a lot from stock investments. If you provide her with the house, maybe she could even help financially. That's so like you. His words stung. Anyway, you need to leave that house by today, he continued, his voice growing colder. It's inconvenient for all of us. I sighed, trying to stay composed. Don't worry, I've already moved. What? John's voice shot up in surprise. What do you mean? I could almost hear his heart racing. I knew it. You don't want to divorce me, do you? Naturally. Without an income, you can't survive. But all of this is coming to an end. We're still married for now, so that's why we're talking. What? His voice cracked, clearly shaken by my words. You promised to move out for Ellie, but you've already moved? His voice trembled, disbelief in every word. Of course I won't live in a house with a husband who decides everything on his own, and a bullying mother-in-law, I said firmly. Why include me in your plans for Ellie? I already moved, as I said. John's tone shifted from surprise to panic. Enough with the jokes. Where are you now? I'm at my parents' house, I replied calmly. I moved to their rural home. I don't plan on returning to where you are. You should have told me that sooner, he snapped, though his voice seemed relieved. If I could just give that house to Ellie. It doesn't matter where you live. That's right, I said, my resolve hardening. The house is for sale. I've put it up for $3. $3 million. Are you joking? John's voice was a mix of fury and disbelief. You're selling it without consulting me? This is unforgivable. I don't need your approval, I replied, unwavering. We're getting divorced soon anyway. I don't care. You'll be the one in trouble if we divorce. You have no income. You're just a housewife. You'll never survive on your own, John retorted, his voice dripping with condescension. I bit back a sharp retort and said, I've already made my decision. If you really want to give the house to Ellie, buy it for $3. $3 million. That's how it works. What? That's impossible, John stammered. If Ellie's made a lot from her investments, she can't afford that. I don't know how much she made, I said coldly, but if she's so successful, she should be able to afford it. John continued to make excuses, his domineering attitude unbroken, but I had reached my breaking point. It was time to end this ridiculous conversation. I'm done with you and this mess, I snapped. Did you really think threatening me with divorce would make me give up the house? If you thought being a housewife meant I'd do whatever you say, you're wrong. Hey, let's calm down and talk, he tried, but I interrupted him. I am calm, I shot back. It's you who's panicking. I won't be controlled by you or your family anymore. Stay out of my life, and go to hell with your precious mother, you mama's boy. I shouted loud enough for anyone nearby to hear, then abruptly hung up. I couldn't bear any more of his manipulation, so I blocked his number. I immediately reached out to my lawyer and decided to move forward with the divorce. Months later, the divorce was finalized, with my husband's actions fully recognized as the cause of our split. He and Mary still live in that apartment, but Ellie's grand plans for the house fell through. She couldn't afford the place, and furious, she reversed course and returned overseas. As for John, his attempt to rely on his successful sister's wealth backfired. Now, he's struggling financially, paying me alimony while still supporting his domineering mother. Without her, his life might have had a chance at prosperity, but with her around, he'll never have peace. On the other hand, I'm finally free. I've moved to the countryside, where I enjoy peaceful days with my parents. I recently started a clerical job at a small company, introduced by a neighbor, and with that salary, I can live comfortably. For now, I plan to stay here as long as I can, enjoying the stability and peace that I've found with my parents. It's time to repay the love and kindness they've always shown me.